Well, Happy New Year. And I say that because we didn't meet last week, and even if we did meet last week, it would have been New Year's Eve. And so this is the first time that we're meeting this year as a church in 2024. And I just want to let you know where we're headed for the rest of the year. Just so all the mystery is taken out, there's no guesswork or anything like that for you to do. Here's where we're headed for the rest of the year. There was this moment in Jesus' ministry 2,000 years ago where he said this. He said, if you love me, keep my commands. If you love me, keep my commands. And so the truth is this, if I love Jesus, then I need to do what he says. If I say that I love Jesus, but I don't do what he says, then the truth is I'm lying. I'm saying one thing, but I'm not living it out. I'm saying with my words, I love Jesus, but I'm saying with my life, I really don't. Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commands. You'll do what I say. If I don't do what Jesus says, then I don't really love him. And then later on in his ministry, right near the end of his ministry, just before he's betrayed, arrested, and crucified, Jesus has a meal with his closest followers, his 12 disciples, his apprentices. And so they gather in this room for this meal, and the custom at the time was for the lowest person in the room to assume the position of a servant and to wash everyone's feet in the room. And so Jesus and his disciples, they all gather for this meal, but none of Jesus' disciples assumes the position of a servant. The reason is because there's a battle of pride. There's a problem with position here. See, all the disciples are sizing one another up, and they're trying to figure out who's the lowest in the room, who's the servant of all, and nobody wants to stoop to serve. And so they begin the meal, and midway through the meal, Jesus realizes nobody's feet has been washed. None of his disciples have stepped up to step down to serve everyone else by washing their feet. So Jesus steps up, and he washes his followers' feet. And then he takes his place back at the meal, and he says, hey, what I've done for you is set an example. And what I want to teach you is this. If you want to be great, the path to greatness is through being a servant. So just like I got up to serve you, in the same way you should serve other people. So he teaches them this principle. He gives them this command, essentially, that if you want to be great, the path to greatness is through serving. And after he gives them this command, after he teaches them this, he says this, now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. And so here's what we see from what Jesus is saying. The premise is this. He says, if you love me, you'll do what I command. And then the promise is this. If you do what I command, you'll be blessed. Right? Earlier in his ministry, if you love me, keep my commands. Later in his ministry, he commands them. He gives them this teaching, and he says, if you do the thing I just taught you, you'll be blessed. So here's what we find. If I love Jesus, I need to do what he says. If I don't do what he says, I don't love Jesus. I can say I love him, but I don't do it. It doesn't matter. I got to do what he says to show that I love him. And Jesus gives this promise. When I do what he says, I'll be blessed. In other words, when I do the thing Jesus teaches me to do, I'll discover the more I was made for. When I do the things Jesus tells me to do, I'll find a blessed life. I'll begin to live the life that I long to live. When I do the things Jesus teaches, then I'll have the peace that I hope for. Then I'll have the patience that I need. Then I'll have the kindness, the gentleness, the self-control, everything I long for. Then I'll have the marriage that I want. Then I'll be able to get through the tough times. Then I'll have peace in the darkness. So Jesus says this, if you love me, keep my commands. And when you keep my commands, you'll be blessed. I don't know about you, but I want to be blessed. I want to live the life God has called me to live. And so here's what we're going to do for the rest of the year. I did some research. There are 52 things that Jesus commanded. And there happen to be 52 weeks in a year. So what we're going to do for most of the year is we're going to look at the things Jesus, there's actually more than 52 things, but preacher stuff, I just boil it down to 52. What we're going to do for most of the year is we're going to look at the things Jesus commanded. Because again, we want to grow in our love for him. And he said, if you love me, do what I say, okay? So we're going to look at Jesus' commands, and we want to be blessed. We want to live the life God has called us to. What we're going to do for the rest of the year is we're going to look at what Jesus said, and then we're going to say, how do we live that out? And what we're going to find at the end of this year is that we will live the life we long to live because we're doing the things Jesus called us to do. And here's what you'll be able to do. If you're skeptical about this, if you're not quite sure about this whole Jesus thing, if you press into this, and you do the things Jesus commands, at the end of this year, you'll be able to look back and say, was he full of it or was he right? Because you'll be able to say, my life is blessed. I have the peace, the patience, the kindness, everything that I want because I've been doing the things Jesus said. Now, here's the key, though. You got to do what Jesus says. You can't just come and hear a sermon and then not do it. If you want to be blessed, if you want to live this life, you got to do what Jesus says. So that's where we're headed for the rest of the year. We're going to look at what Jesus said. We're going to do it. And then I believe at the end of this year, we're going to look back and say, my life is more blessed than ever because I did what Jesus said. You know, there are some questions that often get asked like in a group setting during an icebreaker time. I don't know if you've ever been asked this question. Maybe you've heard this question. If you've been in a group setting, maybe at work or like some icebreaker time, or maybe you're getting to know somebody on a first date and you ask them this question. The question is this: if you could live at any point in time, when would it be? You ever been asked this question? Or maybe you've thought about this. If you could live, I want you to think about it. If you could live at any point in time, when would it be? Now, oftentimes in a Christian setting, or if we're trying to be really Christian, the answer we might give is, I would live during the time of Jesus. I would live when Jesus lived, and I would want to be one of his disciples. I would follow him. I would love to live during the time of Jesus. Maybe you'd say that. I don't know. I wouldn't say that. That's not my answer, because they didn't have air conditioning back then. They didn't have dishwashers back then. They didn't have Starbucks back then. So I would not want to live during Jesus' time. But sometimes people say that. They say, I would want to live during Jesus' time. I'd want to be one of his disciples. I'd follow him around. It'd be so great. And when I hear people say that I would want to live during Jesus' time, I'd want to be one of his followers, I'd be one of his disciples, in my mind, I'm silently thinking, I don't think you would. Not because they didn't have air conditioning, not because they didn't have DoorDash, not because they didn't have cups with the name Stanley on it. No. I don't think you would want to live during Jesus' time. I don't think you'd want to be one of Jesus' disciples, because Jesus said some pretty difficult things. Jesus said some pretty challenging things. And I think for most of us, if we lived during Jesus' time, I think most of us probably would not be following Jesus, because that's our reality now. Like, I think if we were living during Jesus' time and we were following Jesus, what would be written about Jesus' ministry is that he started off with 12 disciples and he ended up with 7. Because I think some of us would quit. I really believe if we were there during Jesus' time, if you were following Jesus and you heard some of the things that he said and some of the things he actually called you to do, I think some of you would quit. I think I might quit. I don't know. I hadn't been in that situation yet. But this is the story for a lot of us. Maybe this is your story, where you went to a church and things got challenging, or somebody said something and you didn't like how they were doing something, or you got offended in some way, and so you left and you went to another church and same thing happened, and this is your third church, and maybe you'll leave here and you'll go somewhere else and do the same thing. This happens in Christianity. This happens with followers of Jesus. There are times where people will come and sit in a service and hear sermons week after week after week, month after month, year after year, and wonder why nothing is changing in their life. And the reason is because they hear the challenging things, but they never put it into practice, and they don't see the blessing of God take place in their life. I wonder, if you and I lived during the time of Jesus, I wonder how many of us would really stick around. Because again, Jesus said some really challenging things. He told his disciples to do some difficult things. Some examples: Jesus told his disciples to leave everything they had and follow him. I think if Jesus said to you, leave your iPhone for a week, you'd be like, nah, it's good. I'm fine. Jesus told his disciples, leave everything you have and follow me. I don't know if we'd be up for it. If Jesus were to say to you, hey, I want you to serve, be a servant, assume the role of a servant, many of us would say, I don't know if I could do that. If Jesus said, I want you to serve in my church every single week, some of us would say, there's no way that I can do that. The time commitment, the capacity, I just can't do that. I'm not Jesus. But if he were to say, I want you to serve in my local church every single week, some of us would push back, say, I don't know if I could do that. Jesus told his disciples to love their enemies. Some of us have a problem just loving our neighbor. all those stupid decorations they put up. I can't believe it. And then the loudness, and then they don't even cut their grass. And, right? Like Jesus told us to do a lot of really difficult things. And I just wonder if we lived during Jesus' time, how many of us really would have followed him? I'm not Jesus, so don't hear me saying those things. I'm not calling you to do those things. He is. But I remember years ago, before launching Journey, so we started this church March 2022. But before launching Journey, I started another church called The Rising. And we launched back in 2014. We went for 6 years, all the way till January 2021. We met at the Norva in downtown Norfolk. And in 2020, we moved from the Norva to Makerscraft. We were averaging about 170 people throughout our 6 years as a church. And we ended up moving to Makerscraft Brewery in 2020, but then the pandemic hit. And so we had to navigate through some stuff just like everybody else. And we ended up shutting down partly because of COVID. But I remember in the process of launching The Rising, I was talking to this one guy about being part of our launch team. I said, hey, would you join us and help us as we get started? And he said, no. He said, James, I would never come to your church. I can't be part of your church. I said, why? Why would you not come be part of our church? He said, because you would actually expect me to do something. And I was like, well, yeah, of course I would expect you to do something, because we're starting a church not so we can set up seats in a concert venue for Christians to be comfortable. We're starting a church so that people far from God will be raised to true life, and it takes work to see that happen. The same is true for Journey. We started this church not so we could set up seats in a skating rink and sit and hear sermons. We started this church so that people will meet Jesus and journey with him, and it requires work to make that happen. It takes all of us going all in, saying we're going to be serious about our faith, and we're going to do something, so yeah, I would expect you to do something. But there's a lot of Christians who aren't down for that. They want to sit and see. And that's not the kind of Christianity Jesus called us to. He called us to do something, to live beyond ourselves, to discover the more we were made for, so that people will meet him and begin this journey with him. See, I think a lot of us, we treat following Jesus and the things Jesus said kind of like New Year's resolutions, right? 92% of people. How many of you made a New Year's resolution this year? Like, you want to do something different? I did. It's okay. You can raise your hand. You don't have to be embarrassed. I'm not going to bash you. Yeah, I made a New Year's resolution. I want to do something different. Dave talked about Basic 7, so I started Basic 7 on January 2nd. I failed. I got to start over, right? It was because, like Friday, I didn't do a random act of kindness, and so I was like, screw it, I'll have a drink too, Like, that's how it is. It's just like, well, why even try? If I failed this, I'll just fail the whole thing. So then I was like, all right, Saturday I'll do it, and then I didn't do a random act of kindness, and then I was like, and I didn't work out, and I was like, I'll have a drink too. So that's how I celebrated. But today I'm starting all over. But here's the deal. 92% of people never achieve their New Year's resolutions. You know why only 8% of people actually accomplish what they set out to do? Only 8% of people accomplish what they set out to do because actually doing it and achieving it is hard. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's hard to lose 15 pounds of weight and keep it off. It takes work and dedication to do that. It's hard to get out of debt. It takes discipline and a plan to make that happen. It's hard to get organized. You got to develop a system and set boundaries because it's hard. It's hard to quit smoking. It takes accountability and determination to do that. And so because it's hard, only a few of us actually follow through and do it. I think in the beginning, New Year's resolutions and changing and new year, new me sounds really good. But when the rubber hits the road and we actually have to do the thing, it's difficult. And so we give up. In the same way, I think we say, yeah, I want to follow Jesus. I want to love him. I want to be close to him. But then when we look at the hard things that Jesus says to do, we say, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can do that. So we settle for a place of comfort and complacency. And then we wonder why we miss the power that God promises. Why aren't we seeing it in our life? It's because Jesus said, if you love me, do what I say. And if you do what I say, you'll be blessed. So we're starting this brand new series called He Might Have Meant It. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to look at some of the really difficult things Jesus said. And we're just going to ask the question, we're going to ponder together, did Jesus really mean what he said? Like when Jesus said the thing he said, did he mean it? Or was he just talking a talk? And I want to just give you a spoiler alert, just so you know right now. I think he might have meant it. Like I think Jesus actually meant the things he said, and I think he really wants us to live out these things. Now, here's what I know. Just like a New Year's resolution, if we press into these difficult teachings, if we press into these challenging things, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But just like when you accomplish your New Year's resolution and you lose those 15 pounds and that six-pack, that eight-pack starts to show, it's worth it. It's worth it. Maybe you'd say, no, it's not worth it. But you emerge on the other side better. When you accomplish that New Year's resolution, you emerge on the other side better. You go through the difficulty, you go through the challenge, you go through the hardship, but you emerge better. In the same way, we're going to look at these challenging things Jesus said, and we're going to say, we're going to do them. We're going to do the thing he said, and we know it's going to be hard. We know it's going to be difficult. But on the other side, we're going to be better because of it. Because Jesus said, hey, if you love me, keep my commands. And if you keep my commands, here's what I know. You're going to be blessed. So here's the first teaching of Jesus that we're going to look at, and this is the most difficult one. Like this is the most challenging teaching, I believe. And we got to start with this one because I believe if we can do this thing, then all the rest will be a breeze. We can do the rest of them. This is like going up to the biggest kid on the playground and punching him in the face, right? This is riding the biggest roller coaster in the park. If you can do this, the rest of it's going to be easy, all right? So here's what Jesus says. We find Jesus saying this all throughout the biographies on his life. But we're going to look at Mark chapter 8, verse 34. It says this, then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple, a disciple is an apprentice, a follower, someone who's going to be close to him, someone who's going to live their life to model and be molded after the life of Jesus. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. Again, I believe this is the most difficult teaching that Jesus gives us. And what we see and what we just read is that by this time in Jesus' ministry, he's accumulated a crowd. There's a lot of people who are following him. But by this time in his ministry, he's healed some people. He's fed thousands of people. He's done some great and amazing things. And there are some people now who are following him, wanting to see what is he going to do next. There's some people in the crowd who are following Jesus, maybe because they're looking to see what can Jesus do for me. Now, none of us would ever follow Jesus for that reason. But the people in this crowd are following him, wondering, what can Jesus do for me? See, Jesus has accumulated a crowd of consumers concerned with their own comfortability. Can I just pray right now, God, may we never become a church consisted of consumeristic Christians concerned with our own comfort. But may we always be a church that does whatever it takes to see more and more people meet you and journey with you. May we be the most generous church, the most sacrificial church, the most loving church, the most serving church, a church that says we recklessly run with you. We show up early and we stay late. We're not afraid to put in work and effort and blood and sweat and tears in order to bring hope to the hopeless and peace to the purposeless. We exist so that people will meet Jesus and journey with him, and it requires work. And if you're not clapping, I hope you'll start clapping soon, because that's what we're about. This crowd was consumeristic. They wanted to see, what can I get from Jesus? And Jesus calls the crowd to him, and it's almost like he's trying to thin out the crowd. Now I want this church to grow. I was thinking about this last week. I said, what if our church, what if Journey grew by 100% this year? That's crazy. Churches don't grow by 100%. But we got about 60 people in our church. I figure 60 more people this year, that's doable. To go from 60 people to 120 people, not so we can have 120 people. That's still a small church. But it means that we're meeting people. But it means that people are meeting Jesus and they're beginning to journey with him, right? So I started thinking, what if we could just grow by 100%? Now, in order to do that, I probably shouldn't preach this sermon or the rest of this series, because again, Jesus gives this command to kind of thin out the crowd. He says, hey, if you want to follow me, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. And after he says that, people stop following him. My hope is that doesn't happen today. Some of you hopefully are going to be like, I'm going to come back next week. Because again, we're going to press into the difficult things of Jesus. We're going to do what he says, and then we're going to see God bless our lives because we're doing what he says. But Jesus says, if you want to follow me, take up your cross and follow me. Go all in. And he says, here's what it really means to follow me. If you're going to follow me, deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me, because that's the path that I'm headed down. Jesus heads down a path that leads him to the cross. And Jesus is telling people in the crowd, if you're willing to make me the leader of your life, then you got to take yourself out of the lead role. Is there some feedback going on? Is that just me? All right, that's just me then. He said, if you're going to follow me, then you got to follow my lead. And where I'm leading you is a place that's going to lead to death. The truth is this, you cannot lead and have life. Jesus saying, if you want life, you got to follow me, and I'll lead you to true life. And I don't want you to just be part of the crowd. I want you to be all in. I'm interested in all or nothing. You decide. And so what Jesus is telling us is if we're going to follow him, then he's saying, I want you to die to yourself. To die to what you think is right, to die to what you think is wrong, to die to what society says, to die to what you grew up believing in, to die to what you want to do, die to the persuasion of your particular political party. He's saying, I want you to completely die to yourself and not let me change you, not let me fix you, but let me come in and demolish all of who you were, all of who you are, and make you completely brand new. Let me transform you so that when people see you, they see me. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. That's a big call. And it changes everything. What we find here is that we can't kind of sort of follow Jesus. And so here's what that looks like in practical everyday living. If I'm following Jesus, I'm going to be made brand new. Then what it means is when I'm driving down the road and somebody cuts me off, I smile. There it is. I know I wasn't crazy. I smile. I say, God bless them. And I wave at them with my whole hand. And I say, before I was brand new, when I was dead, I would have wove at you. Not with my whole hand. But I'm not going to go there. I'm brand new. I'm changed. I'm different. I'm dying to myself and I'm living for Jesus. Denying yourself is that you tell your friends, hey, I'm sorry, but I can't go out to eat with you tonight because I made a mess of my finances and I got to pay MasterCard. And I don't want to pay MasterCard anymore. I want to be able to do the things of God with the resources of God. But right now I'm tied up in all this debt. And for me to say yes to going out to you, going out to dinner with you is saying no to getting this mess cleaned up. So I'm going to deny myself. I'm going to take care of this mess so I can get my finances in order, get my finances right, so I can do the things of God with the resources of God. I'm going to deny myself. What it means to die to yourself, deny yourself, is when you come home and you've had a long, hard day and you see the dishes are piled up. You don't just ignore it, hoping your wife is going to do the dishes, because that's her job. You die to yourself and you do the dishes. By the way, marriage is all about seeing who can die first. Not physically, but every single day, who can die first to serve the other? This is what Jesus calls us to lay down our life, to die to ourselves, and become more like him. Denying ourselves and taking up our cross is a daily decision that we have to make if we're going to follow Jesus and be more like him. And the gospel writer Luke records this same teaching that Jesus teaches another time in his ministry. But this time when Jesus says it later on, it's almost like, I think he looked back and he was like, what I said before about follow me, take up your cross, deny yourself, I don't think it was strong enough. So I need to add a little more bite to it. I'm going to put a little more teeth to it. So when Luke records what Jesus says, here's how he says it this time. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even life itself, such a person cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Like we heard this last part already. If you don't take up your cross and follow me, you can't be my disciple. And it's not like you can kind of sort of maybe be my disciple. He's like, you just can't. Like if you're not willing to take up your cross to die to yourself and follow me, nah. But this first part is new. Like this first part is like, it's like a Muay Thai elbow to the face, right? Like, what? Wait. He said, if you don't hate your mother and father, brother or sister, wife, children, even your very own life, you can't follow me. What is this about? See, the word that Jesus uses for hate here is the Greek word miseo. And miseo can mean several different things. It can mean hate, just like what we read. But it can also mean if you don't denounce, deny, or it can also mean love less than something else. And so what we need to understand from this passage is Jesus isn't teaching us to hate. He's not saying, hey, like literally hate your mom and dad, your life, and the people all around you, neglect them and hate them. And no. He's saying, look, in comparison to your love for me, it should look like you love them less. Because what you're doing is you're saying, Jesus is number one for me. Jesus is center of my life. And so I love my kids, I love my wife, I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my life, I love all of that. But in comparison to my love for Jesus, he's the one who, what he says goes. He gets the final word. He's the authority in my life. And so what Jesus is saying is, I will not compete with anything else. I will not come second to anything else. If you make me second to anything else, you cannot be my disciple. Jesus is saying, in your list of priorities, I supersede your job. I supersede your dreams and your desires. I supersede your family. I come first in everything. Not that you neglect those things. Not that you abandon those things. Not that you mistreat those things. But in the priority list of your life, I am first and foremost. Here's why. Because Jesus says, I'm going to call you to do some crazy things. I'm going to call you to step outside your comfort zone. I'm going to call you to venture into places you've never ventured into. And if you put these things first, then what I call you to do is not going to work. You're not going to want to do them. And remember, Jesus said, if you love me, do what I say. And when you do what I say, you'll be blessed. You'll find the life that you long for. But if you love these other things first and foremost before me, you're not going to do what I call you to do. And you're going to miss out. And you're going to wonder, where's the whole magic to this Jesus thing? So he lets us know, man, if it's not me first, this isn't going to work. What we find here is Jesus is not calling us to a comfortable Christianity. Rather, he's calling us to nothing less than to die to ourselves and fully follow him. And he makes it plain. This is what it means to follow Jesus. All or nothing. And he says this to people who have been following him in the crowd for a while. But there's also some newcomers to the crowd, I imagine. Some people who came for the first time and they're like, what's this whole Jesus thing about? He says, hey, I just want to let you know that if I'm not first and foremost in your life, if you're not willing to take up your cross and follow me, don't even bother. And I think the reason he does this is because he doesn't want to bamboozle anybody. He don't want people following him for a while and then they find that out later on. They're like, I didn't know that. And so he just explains it to people. He says, you got to count the cost of following me. This is what it means to follow me. Take up your cross, die to yourself, follow me. If you're not willing to do that, my hope is that one day you will be. He said, but you gotta count the costs. And he gives some examples. He says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? See, if you lay the foundation and you're not able to finish it, then everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he's able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he's not able, then he'll send a delegation while the other is still a long way off, and he'll ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not want to give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. He's like, I'm not blindsiding anybody. I'm not hiding anything. There's no hidden fee. This is what it is. And if you're not willing to do it, just count the cost and say, I'm not willing to do it, and walk away. My hope is that doesn't happen to you or in your life. It could happen. But my hope is that you really do count the cost, and this calls you to a greater level of living. That you begin to count the cost and you say, man, if that's what Jesus meant, then I'm going to change some stuff in my life. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to challenge you. But just like with a New Year's resolution, you're going to emerge better on the other side. So are you willing to do it? Are you willing to do it? This is an all or nothing invitation from Jesus. There's no sort of kind of maybe following him. And it is intimidating. Because it means that we got to really take a look at our life and our faith and say, are we really serious about this? C.S. Lewis puts it this way. He said, the terrible thing, the almost impossible thing, is to hand over your whole self, all your wishes and precautions to Christ. Christ says, give me all. I don't want so much of your time and so much of your money and so much of your work. I want you. I've not come to torment your natural self, but to kill it. No half measures are any good. I don't want to cut off a branch here and a branch there. I want to have the whole tree down. I don't want to drill the tooth or crown it or stop it, but I want to have it out. Hand over the whole natural self, all the desires which you think innocent, as well as the ones that are wicked, the whole outfit. I'll give you a new self instead. In fact, I'll give you myself. My own will shall become yours. And then A.W. Tozer said this, among all the plastic saints of our times, Jesus has to do all the dying. And all we want to hear is another sermon about his dying. But the truth is, if you're a Christian, Jesus calls you to die. To die to yourself, take up your cross, and follow him. The early church planner Paul explained our journey of dying to ourselves this way. He said this, I've been crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. What we find is that dying to ourselves is not something that happened, it's something that happens. Every single day when we wake up, we have to make the decision to say, today is a good day to die. Today is a good day to die. And we're not talking about the end of our life coming, but we're talking about I'm going to die to myself. I'm making that choice today, and an hour from now, moments from now, I'm going to die to myself and live for Jesus. Today is a good day to die. Today is a good day to die. So I want to just pose some questions to you to help you contemplate how you're doing at denying yourself, making Jesus the leader of your life. You could just answer these questions to yourself. One is this: do you share your faith with other people? Do you share your faith with other people? Not in an obnoxious way, but in a way where it's just like, I've found hope in life, and I can't keep it to myself. I need to let the people that I know and love know about this. Are you sharing your faith with people? Well, Pastor, you don't understand. We can't talk about religion at work. Don't push back on it. Don't give excuses. Are you sharing your faith with people? Are you serving within the local church or outside the local church? Well, you don't understand. I don't have the time. I don't have the capacity. There's no way that I can. Don't push back on it. Jesus calls us to serve. The path to greatness is through serving. Would you describe yourself as recklessly running with Jesus? Emphasis on recklessly and running, or are you just strolling? Is gratitude your middle name as you live with open hands and you practice generosity, not just with your time, but also with your resources? Are you honoring God in your attitude? Do you die to yourself to serve your husband or your wife? Do you work with integrity? Do you show honor to everyone? Do you believe the best in people, or do you assume the worst? Do you gossip? Are there any secret sins that you're hiding and you hope no one ever finds out? Are you pursuing purity in your relationships? Do you have views and stances on things that don't line up with the scriptures? God said it, but you believe something else. Either you're wrong or he's lying. Are you constantly busy all the time? See, Jesus said, unless you die to yourself and take up your cross, you cannot follow me. You know, as I close, I want to tell you who I'm thankful for. I'm really thankful for Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' followers, one of his disciples, and there was this time in Peter's life where he says to Jesus, I will never leave you or forsake you. Jesus, I know you're going to be handed over. You're going to be crucified, like you're talking about all that stuff, but I'm going to stay by your side. I'm never going to leave you. I'm going to die with you. And then Jesus has this final meal with his disciples. He's betrayed. He's arrested. He's handed over. And when this happens, you know what Peter does? He deserts Jesus. He leaves them. Like all of Jesus' disciples, all of his followers fall away, and so does Peter. The guy who said, I'll never leave you. Peter leaves him. He drops the cross. Not literally, but figuratively. He drops the cross and runs away. And then Jesus is sentenced to death, and he's forced to literally carry his cross to the place that he'd be executed by crucifixion, and Peter's nowhere to be found. Peter deserted Jesus. He turns his back on him. And what Peter does is he goes back to living the life that he lived before Jesus called him. He goes back to being a fisherman. And so Jesus was crucified, he was buried, but he didn't stay dead because he rose again. On the third day, he conquered hell and death. He rose in victory, and then he went to Peter. Jesus showed up to Peter, waffling Peter, wavering Peter. Peter who had abandoned him. Peter who took up a cross and then he dropped it. Peter who pledged allegiance to Jesus and then disowned him. Peter who made Jesus the leader of his life and then impeached him right there on the spot, making himself the leader of his life. Jesus finds Peter and he doesn't chastise him. He doesn't disgrace him. He doesn't write him off, but Jesus reinstates Peter. Jesus offers him the same invitation to follow him again, to take up his cross yet again, and to make Jesus the leader of his life. And then Peter would go on to be a great leader in the church, and eventually he would give his life by being crucified upside down on a cross. He learned his lesson. He took up his cross, and he died. What Peter discovered is that Jesus meant what he said. And I want to tell you, in the same way that Jesus forgave Peter and he gave Peter grace, he looks to you and me who have abandoned our crosses at times, who have lived for ourselves at times. He looks to us and says, I want to give you another chance. I want to give you another chance because today is a good day to die. So take up your cross and follow me. No matter how many times you've dropped the cross, no matter how many times you've gone your own way, no matter how many times you said, I don't know if I can do this, Jesus looks at you and he says, one more time. One more time, let's go. And I'll lead you to the life you long to live. But you have to make the decision to say, today is a good day to die. I'll take up the cross today and I'll live for you. And that's what we remember every single week as we celebrate communion, is that Jesus died so that we might have life. In your chairs, there's some cups, there's some bread and juice in those cups. It reminds us of Jesus' body and his blood that was shed for us. In a moment, I want to invite you to take communion. But I wonder if for some of you, you need to make the decision today to say, I'm going to go all in with Jesus and be baptized into him. Maybe you've never made that decision to say, I'm going to take up my cross, I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to be baptized in you. I'm going to become a Christian, a fully devoted follower of you. Today's the day to make that decision. In our app, there's a Connect form. On that Connect form, there's a box that says, I want to get baptized. Man, on Christmas Eve, we had 4 people give their lives to Christ and get baptized. Yeah, we had 2 people we were planning on, we knew they were going to get baptized, and then 2 that day made the decision, and they got baptized in the clothes they came in. We had a trough set up over there. The water was freezing cold, and they were like, we're going to do it anyway. Hey, I want to encourage you, if you've never made the decision to get baptized, today's the day to make that decision. We want to celebrate with you. We want to answer questions that you have. We want to walk with you on that journey, and then we want to set up a day for you to get baptized. But that's where it begins, making the decision to say, I'm going to go all in with Jesus. I'm going to take up my cross and follow him. And if you've made that decision and you laid the cross down and you let it go, today's the day to pick it back up and say, Jesus, I'm going to go all in with you. And next week, if you put the cross down, you got to get reminded again and say, no, I'm picking it back up. And then 4 months from now, if you put the cross down, you got to pick it back up, get reminded and say, I'm following you, Jesus. Because it's tough, it's difficult, but you lead the way to life. And that's why I want to follow you. So Jesus said, hey, if you want to be my disciple, if you want to find life, you got to lose yours. And the way to do that is to take up your cross, follow me, deny yourself. And you know what? He meant it. He meant it. So now it's time for us to do it. Would you pray with me? God, I want to thank you. Man, just thank you for the way you challenge us, the way you call us out, the way you pull us to discover the more we were made for. Man, you created us with so much potential. You created us with just immense good and so much that we underutilize. And so, God, help us see that. Help us realize choosing the path of familiarity and comfort is not going to get us where we need to be. But denying ourselves, taking up our cross, following you, and doing the things you said will lead us to where we want to be. And that's what we want. We know it's going to be tough. We know it's going to be challenging. And that's why we need your help. So help us today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. If you haven't taken communion, feel free to do that now.